I had an offset conversation with you the other day, and you reminded me of something that I've been wanting to do, because I think a lot of times people just don't understand, and they don't fully appreciate that when we do time. Anyone that's incarcerated, physical time, incarcerated inmates being in prison, it's not us just doing the time. Our children do that time with us.
That's right.
Our parents do that time with us. Our loved ones do that time with us. And I want you to tell me about an interview that you had, and tell me how your daughter, or how our children, you speaking about your daughter, because you mentioned that to me the other day, but you also representing so many of our children out there. So many of us have children when we go to prison. Give me just give us a little bit of that conversation that you had with someone. You said you did an interview with your daughter, with the lady, and there was something very significant that you found out and learned about your daughter. I want to hear it.
Yeah, well, shortly after I got out of prison, there was a young lady, her name was Rhonda, and she was just starting off. The podcast was kind of new, and she wanted to interview me, but someone had told about me, but she said, I don't really want to interview you about your story, because there's multiple stories out there about men and women getting out of prison and what they went through. She said, I want to come at a different angle. I want to interview you, but I want to concentrate more on what the child went through while you was away. So I asked my daughter, would she be willing? So me and my daughter, we went on the interview. And so my daughter told a story about what she went through while I was gone. She was doing good in school up to a certain point as she began to grow, get old, I think around 10, 11 years old. And all of a sudden she took a turn for the worse. Her grades started going bad, her attitude started changing, she started appearing to be disconnected.
How old were you when was your daughter when you got locked up?
When I got locked up, my daughter's mother was 5 months pregnant.
Okay.
So I actually saw my children being raised up in the visiting room.
Gotcha.
My son was 1 year old. Okay. My daughter was 5, but her mother was 5 months in prison.
Okay.
So yeah, I watched them grow in a bit. So nevertheless, my daughter, her grades was failing, and she was having mental problems and stuff like that. So the teacher called a conference for my daughter's mother to come to the school and for my daughter to come, because they're trying to figure out what happened to this vibrant, bright young lady to where she took such a down spiral in such a short period of time.
Right.
So they begin to ask her questions. And one of the things to keep from making this lengthy, right, they wanted to get to the core of why she changed so drastically. And she said something so simple, but yet so profound. She says, I miss my daddy.
Wow.
Yeah. So some parents and some guys that I know that have gone through prison, their kids are mad at them. They have no relationships with them because they felt like you left me and my mom. You left us out here to fend for yourself, for themselves. But I thank God for my kids, because they didn't look at the mistakes that I made, whatever. They loved me for who I was and who I am. And we have a close relationship, because while I was in prison, just like you say, your family doing time with you. But I did everything I had to do to stay connected. Calling, making sure they visit, sending letters, sending cards, doing whatever, calling friends to make sure, hey, if you're taking your family, can my daughter go with you? And hey, can you drop some money by the house? To stay connected in any way I can, because it's not easy. So it does not always happen in a good way. But a lot of those kids are distracted and can't concentrate, especially when they have a tight relationship with their parent. So we always concentrating on the person that's doing the time and kind of like not really recognizing what the kids go through as they grow up. They need their parents, and that's why it's important for us not to make decisions that's going to cause us to be in a situation that jeopardize our freedom, because our actions is not just restricted to ourselves. The actions and decisions that we make, it affects the ones that we love. And when I realized what I had done, I realized that the very person and the people that I tried to help, I end up hurting the most.
And that's powerful, because, so many of us don't realize that our actions are going to impact the ones that we love the most. And that's what people got to think about. When you're out there and you're doing an act, or you're doing something, you gotta think about the people that love you. You can't only think about yourself. You always gotta think about, if I do this, you gotta take into account the worst case scenario. We always like to look at the best case scenario. But if you're out there doing wrong, there's no assurances that the best case scenario is always gonna happen. So if you're okay with and you're willing to live with the worst case scenario, then have at it.